Amara Chukwu grew up in a small house in the busy streets of Lagos. Life was never easy for her family. Her father worked hard as a taxi driver, and her mother sold food by the roadside just to keep them going. But even in their struggles, Amara always carried a quiet kind of grace, the kind that didn't come from money but from heart. She believed deeply that love was worth more than anything money could buy. So when Emeka Obi came into her life, she thought her prayers had been answered. He was kind, charming, and came from a wealthy family. Amara believed that their love could bridge the gap between their worlds. When Emeka proposed, she thought it was the start of her fairy tale. She dreamed of a simple but happy marriage filled with peace and respect. But from the moment she met his mother, Madam Ifeoma, she felt the cold wall of judgment. The woman's eyes said everything: that Amara wasn't good enough, that her love didn't matter without money or status. Still, Amara smiled, believing time and kindness could change hearts. She didn't know then that the same people she wanted to call family would soon become the reason her heart broke. May you be sure for her speckled with. Yet no world never for none I to live it. If no fusser some artnesser your wish. When you fit on only sit. Derp so fail, but as in the beat day. May shit serve so with her fall. Nemo mir right elf beer nemur romser and all that serum. Fallil enough sight in the and at. Flora were in the McLow on the worm. Hurry, it's her him to ham away family. And I'd never the rod I made the. And I get our sister is me. And the last search the. Her did it must. Yeah, we'll go with you next year. So say. Sash her house in the car her son of ye. Yeah, that her feet is the ear, but plus her so firm. Whoops, her thumb sister one that their own pure man the dips no last. Fall with milky him a wooden if it is you wish. Now last her house bit sick of me. Yeah, it's sweet for wish. Sarah for that in I wouldn't ask her if her. Daddy, if you will swam, sir. I almost nursed ya on it. So erfs she's her mocking it milk spots this hell. Now last no more with. Filing come with the resish. So I'll grip our bro fun of it on it. No mas here I'm not Sam Nicola. Hurry, he's no we're right funny while whoops the snare for fun of roast neelish. Sax in the lork spiller. What does the hammer for on the night? See out brush him away from madame. All silent did Nemo at the Nemo murph giffer offing it your red. Hurt foul at this we mit still. Off super her hugam at acid sisha. Here shall unfold the source die schneid stief fasse. Sarge nigel at able messiah but such nivetski nips dash. Fials are almost a see path when a wee besuch so we'd off memshade. A week after the engagement party, things only got worse. Amara tried her best to win her in-laws' hearts. She cooked, cleaned, and greeted everyone with respect. She hoped they would see her for who she was, not for what she didn't have. But Madam Ifeoma had already made up her mind. Every day she found new ways to insult Amara. If Amara wore something nice, she would say it looked cheap. If she stayed quiet, she would call her proud. Nothing she did was ever enough. One evening, Madam Ifeoma called a family meeting in the grand living room. Emeka sat there, head down, while his mother's voice filled the air like fire. Amara, she said coldly, you have no wealth, no value, and no name. You're taking our son nowhere. We cannot have a woman like you in this family. Amara's hands trembled. Her heart pounded, but she didn't speak. She looked at Emeka, hoping he would say something, anything. But he stayed silent, staring at the floor. That silence broke her more than the cruel words ever could. Pack your things, Madam Ifeoma added sharply. Leave this house tonight. You don't belong here. Tears filled Amara's eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She turned around slowly, holding her dignity like armor. With every step toward the door, her heart felt heavier, but her pride kept her upright. The guards opened the gate and she stepped out, her dreams crumbling behind her like dust. Outside, the cool night air touched her face, and for the first time she allowed herself to cry. Her love, her hope, her fairy tale, all gone in one night. But through her pain, one thought burned quietly inside her. They think I'm nobody now, but one day, I'll show them who I really am. That night, Amara didn't just leave a mansion. She walked away from her old self, unknowingly stepping into the beginning of her rise. Back in her small one-room apartment, Amara's life changed completely. Gone were the days of comfort and fancy meals. Now, her nights were quiet except for the sound of traffic outside and the hum of her ceiling fan that barely worked. She would sit by the window, staring at the city lights, wondering how everything had fallen apart so fast. But even in her pain, she refused to let bitterness consume her. She told herself, "This is not the end. I just need to start again." Each morning, she woke up before sunrise to prepare for her first job at a local cafe. She served customers with a smile, even when her feet ached from standing all day. In the evenings, she rushed to her second job as an assistant in a small boutique, helping customers choose clothes she could never afford. Some nights she came home too tired to eat, but she still opened her old notebook, filled with dreams and ideas she once shared with Emeka, and reminded herself why she couldn't give up. Her neighbors sometimes whispered about her fall from grace, how she went from living in a mansion to barely surviving. Amara heard them, but she never responded. She knew her silence would one day speak louder than their gossip. On nights when loneliness hit the hardest, she would look at her reflection in the small mirror and whisper softly, "I may be poor now, but I will never be powerless." Those words became her prayer, her promise, and her strength. Life tested her every day. Unpaid bills, exhaustion, heartbreak, but deep inside something stronger was growing. The pain was shaping her, molding her into someone different. She didn't realize it yet, but every sleepless night and every tear was building the foundation for the woman she was destined to become, the woman who would one day make the world remember her name. Amara had always believed her father, Chief Obinachukwu, left the world with nothing but memories. He had been a quiet man, kind, disciplined, and full of wisdom, but she thought his small transport business had collapsed before he passed away. For years she carried his last words in her heart. "My daughter, one day the world will see your true worth." She never understood what he meant, until that day. On the morning of her 21st birthday, Amara was sitting in her tiny apartment when she received a formal letter. The envelope was thick, sealed with gold wax, and carried a law firm's emblem she didn't recognize. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside was a message that would change her life forever. "You are the sole heir to the estate of Chief Obinachukwu." First she thought it was a mistake, but when she met the family lawyer later that week, he handed her documents, bank statements, and investment portfolios. Her father had secretly built a massive fortune, shares in oil companies, real estate in multiple countries, and investments worth billions of naira. He had kept everything hidden, waiting for her to be mature enough to handle it. Tears filled Amara's eyes as she realized the truth. The man everyone thought died poor had quietly secured her future. For the first time in years she felt her father's presence, not in words but in legacy. That night she sat on her bed, holding the inheritance documents close to her chest. The same girl who had been called worthless now held enough power to change lives. But instead of feeling pride, she felt peace. She whispered softly, "Papa, I'll make you proud. I'll build something that will carry your name forever." From that day, Amara's story took a new turn, one that no one, not even her cruel in-laws, could have ever imagined. The girl they threw out had just become the woman who owned everything they worshipped. Amara's life changed overnight, but not in the loud, dramatic way people expected. She didn't rush to buy cars or throw parties. Instead, she sat down with the same calm determination that had carried her through her hardest days. She met with her father's lawyer, listened carefully, and learned everything she could about business, investments, and leadership. If her father had trusted her with such a fortune, she wanted to prove she deserved it. She started small, buying a few properties in Lagos and renovating them into beautiful modern homes. Her taste was classy and elegant, never loud, never desperate to impress. Every project she touched turned into success. People began to whisper about a mysterious young woman changing the real estate scene in the city. No one knew it was the same Amara they had once mocked for being poor. As her confidence grew, she founded Chukwu Legacy Holdings, a company named to honor her late father. Under her direction, it expanded into construction, hospitality, and tech investments across Africa. Amara became known for her intelligence, grace, and quiet power. She didn't chase fame, it found her naturally. She transformed herself completely, not just on the outside but within. Her wardrobe changed from simple dresses to elegant Osso-oak gowns and tailored suits. Her once tired eyes now held purpose and calm. When she walked into a room, people felt her presence, not because she tried to stand out, but because power had settled into her spirit. Sometimes she would drive past the mansion she once lived in and smile softly, not out of hate but gratitude. Every tear, every humiliation had led her here. The girl who once begged for acceptance had become a woman the whole city respected. In silence, Amara rebuilt her life brick by brick, and without realizing it, she was building an empire strong enough to shake the same world that once rejected her. Months later, while going through some real estate reports with her team, Amara came across a familiar name: Obio Estates, Lekki. The file mentioned a newly built mansion owned by none other than Madam Ifeoma and her son Emeka. For a moment she froze, her fingers resting on the paper. The name brought back memories she had buried deep. The humiliation, the silence, the night she was thrown out like nothing. But instead of pain, a calm smile touched her lips. Life truly had a way of turning tables. She leaned back in her office chair, surrounded by the quiet luxury of her new world: glass walls, a city view, and the soft glow of success. Her assistant walked in asking, "Ma, should I remove that property from the list?" Amara shook her head slowly. "No," she said. "Keep it. I might take a closer look." Curiosity mixed with a quiet sense of poetic justice. The same family who once called her poor was now living in a house that cost less than what she made in a single deal. They had no idea the woman they had humiliated now owned more land in Lekki than they could ever dream of. That evening, as she drove past their new mansion, she saw it from her car window: tall gates, marble walls, and guards in uniform. For a second, memories rushed back. Madam Ifeoma's voice calling her worthless, Emeka's silence, the pain in her chest that night. But this time she didn't feel weak. She felt powerful, in control, free and untouchable. She smiled softly and whispered to herself, "Life always brings you back to the places where you were broken, just to show you how strong you've become." Then she rolled up her window and drove away, leaving behind the ghosts of her past. What they didn't know was that fate had already begun to weave a story where Amara would return, not as the poor girl they threw out, but as the woman who now owned their world. Amara had learned one thing from her past: true power doesn't shout, it moves in silence. So instead of confronting her ex-in-laws directly, she began to study their world. She asked her financial team to gather details about every company and business the Obio family was connected to. The reports came in quickly: suppliers, investors, real estate developers, and trading partners. Amara read through each name carefully, her sharp mind connecting the dots. If they had once taken her dignity, she would now take control of everything that gave them pride, quietly, legally, and gracefully. Through Chukwu Legacy Holdings, she started buying shares in those companies. At first it was small: 5%, then 10%, then 20%. No one paid much attention to the new investor because she used her subsidiary firms to make the deals. Within a few months, Amara had acquired controlling stakes in multiple businesses that were directly linked to the Obio family's empire. By the time Madam Ifeoma and Emeka realized what was happening, it was too late. Some of their most trusted business partners were now answering to Amara. Contracts were being renegotiated, and deals were being redirected under her authority. Their financial strength began to shake, but they couldn't figure out who was behind it. Amara watched it all from her glass office, calm and unbothered. She didn't brag, didn't seek revenge in public. Instead, she smiled softly whenever another report landed on her desk showing her growing influence. "This is not revenge," she told herself one night as she looked out at the Lagos skyline. "This is balance." She knew one thing: true victory doesn't need noise. It only needs timing and wisdom. And with every quiet move she made, Amara was not just reclaiming her power, she was rewriting her story. The same people who once saw her as powerless were now unknowingly bowing to her authority. The empire that once rejected her was slowly, piece by piece, falling under her control. The night of the gala was one Lagos would never forget. The Nairas, Amara's ex-in-laws, had thrown a grand celebration to show off their success. The event hall in Victoria Island glittered with chandeliers and gold decor. Luxury cars lined the entrance, and the red carpet was filled with Lagos socialites posing for pictures. Everyone who was somebody was there. What they didn't know was that the woman they once threw out was about to walk through those same doors, not as a guest of pity, but as the woman everyone now admired. When Amara stepped out of her car, the crowd fell silent. She wore a breathtaking gold Osso-oak gown that shimmered under the lights. Her skin glowed, her jewels sparkled, and her confidence spoke louder than any words could. Cameras turned instantly toward her. Phones flashed, reporters rushed to take photos, and whispers spread like wildfire. "Isn't that Amara Chukwu? The girl they kicked out, one woman whispered. No way. Look at her. She's glowing, another gasped. As she walked slowly into the hall, all eyes followed. Her gown flowed behind her like royalty, and her calm smile made the moment even more powerful. Madame Ifeoma stood at the center of the hall, frozen in disbelief. Emeka's glass almost slipped from his hand. The same woman they once called a burden was now the center of attention. People greeted her with respect, calling her Madame Amara, asking for photos, eager to impress her. Amara didn't look at her ex-in-laws immediately. She simply smiled, thanked the guests, and moved gracefully through the crowd. Every step she took reminded them of what they had lost. Not just her love, but the chance to be part of something extraordinary. Social media exploded within minutes. Pictures, videos, hashtags. Hashtag from poor to powerful. Hashtag Amara the Queen. Everyone was talking about her. And as she stood under the lights, surrounded by admiration, Amara finally realized she didn't need to seek revenge. Her success was loud enough. Madame Ifeoma stood still, her smile frozen halfway as Amara entered the hall. For a moment, she thought her eyes were deceiving her. The lights from the chandeliers reflected off Amara's gold gown, making her shine like something otherworldly. Every conversation stopped, every laugh died down. All eyes turned toward her. Emeka, standing beside his mother, felt his throat go dry. He had never seen her like this before. Powerful, elegant, and calm, like she had stepped out of a dream he could never touch again. Whispers filled the room. Wait, is that the same Amara they kicked out? No way, look at her. She's richer than all of them. How did she change so much? Madame Ifeoma's friends glanced at her in shock, waiting for her reaction. Her face turned pale as she forced a weak smile, pretending not to care. But inside she was burning with shame. This was not the poor girl she had mocked. This was a woman who carried herself like royalty. Amara walked past them with quiet grace, her heels clicking softly on the marble floor. She stopped briefly, her eyes meeting Madame Ifeoma's. For a few seconds silence spoke louder than words. There was no anger, no revenge in her eyes, only power and peace. That silence cut deeper than any insult ever could. Emeka's heart twisted. He wanted to say something, to apologize, but his voice wouldn't come out. He realized too late that the woman who once begged for his love no longer needed it. Amara turned away gently, greeting other guests with her soft, confident smile. The crowd watched in awe, whispering her name like a legend being born before their eyes. As she moved across the hall, it became clear. She was no longer the girl they pitied. She was the woman everyone admired, the one who rose above pain with elegance. Madame Ifeoma looked on helplessly, knowing deep down she hadn't just lost a daughter-in-law. She had lost the chance to ever stand beside a queen. Weeks after the gala, Amara made her next move, quietly, smartly, and without a trace of bitterness. She had no interest in shouting or proving a point. Her power was the kind that didn't need noise. Behind the scenes, her lawyers and business team began working on a set of acquisitions that would change everything. Through Chukwu Legacy Holdings, Amara began to buy out key assets connected to the Naira family. It started with a few business partnerships, small companies they relied on for contracts, logistics, and supplies. One by one, those businesses fell under her control. Then came the big one, the luxurious Lekki mansion that Madame Ifeoma loved to boast about. The family had taken a huge loan to complete it, and when payments fell behind, Amara's firm quietly purchased the mortgage through another investment company. Within weeks, the legal documents were signed, sealed, and transferred. The mansion, along with several other Naira properties, now belonged to her. When Madame Ifeoma found out, she couldn't believe it. "What do you mean the property now belongs to someone else?" she shouted at her lawyer. But the papers were clear. The new owner was Chukwu Legacy Holdings. She had no idea that the name behind that company was the same woman she once called worthless. Amara didn't throw them out or send guards to humiliate them. She simply sent a polite letter, giving them time to vacate the house respectfully. No anger, no chaos, just quiet power. When her team asked if she wanted to make the story public, Amara smiled softly and said, "No, true power doesn't need to be seen. It needs to be felt." That night, she looked out from her penthouse balcony, the city lights reflecting in her eyes. She had taken back everything that once broke her, not through revenge but through grace and wisdom. Her silence had spoken louder than all the insults they had ever thrown at her. And for the first time, Amara truly understood real power was peace. A few days after the gala, Lagos was buzzing with one name, Amara Chukwu. Someone had recorded a short video of her grand entrance that night. The moment she stepped out of her car in that golden gown, her head high, her smile calm, her presence magnetic. The video spread across social media like wildfire. Within hours, it had millions of views. People couldn't stop talking about her transformation. Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok were flooded with comments and admiration. Hashtags like #FromPoor2Powerful, #Amara the Queen, and #GraceOverRevenge started trending across Africa. Everyone wanted to know who she was, how she had gone from being the poor girl who was kicked out to the woman everyone now looked up to. Influencers made videos praising her. News anchors called her the face of resilience. Even people who didn't know her personally felt inspired by her story. Clips of Madame Ifeoma's shocked face during the gala surfaced too, but Amara never commented on them. She refused interviews, saying only, "I'm grateful for where life has taken me." That quiet humility made people love her even more. Fashion blogs highlighted her look, calling it the perfect symbol of African elegance and power. Business magazines started digging into her background and were stunned to discover the empire she had built under Chukwu Legacy Holdings. Suddenly, Amara wasn't just a trending name. She had become a movement. Across Nigeria and beyond, women began quoting her story. They called her poor. She became powerful. It became a line people used to motivate themselves through hardship. In her penthouse, Amara sat by her window late at night, watching the city lights. Her phone buzzed nonstop with notifications, but she didn't let the fame distract her. She smiled softly and whispered, "I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for every woman who has ever been told she's not enough." That moment, she wasn't just Amara anymore. She was a symbol of hope, a living reminder to. When the truth finally came out, that Amara now owned most of the Naira family's properties, Lagos society exploded with gossip. Newspapers ran stories and talk shows discussed the shocking twist. Everyone wanted to know how the same woman they had once mocked had quietly taken control of everything. For the Nairas, life became unbearable. Business partners pulled away, and friends who once praised them now avoided their calls. Madame Ifeoma, who had built her pride on wealth and status, could no longer walk into social events without whispers following her. People looked at her not with admiration, but with pity and sometimes judgment. The humiliation she had once forced on Amara had now returned to her, multiplied. One afternoon, desperate and ashamed, Madame Ifeoma requested a private meeting with Amara. When Amara agreed, they met at a quiet restaurant. Madame Ifeoma came dressed simply, her usual confidence gone. "Amara," she said softly, her voice trembling, "I was wrong. I misjudged you. Please forgive me." Amara listened quietly, her expression calm and unreadable. There was no anger in her eyes, only strength. After a moment of silence, she said, "You made your choice, Madame Ifeoma, and I made mine. Power isn't about wealth, it's about vision and patience." Her voice was soft, but every word carried weight. Madame Ifeoma lowered her head, tears forming in her eyes. For the first time, she realized the woman she had tried to destroy had become everything she could never be: graceful, powerful, and untouchable. The news of their meeting somehow leaked, and when the public heard how Amara handled it with dignity, she earned even more respect. People said, she didn't need revenge. Her success was enough. The Nairas became symbols of greed and pride, while Amara became the face of grace and wisdom. She never needed to embarrass them. Life had already done it for her. And through it all, Amara walked away not with bitterness, but with peace, proving, after everything she had been through, Amara chose not to build her legacy on revenge, but on purpose. Instead of celebrating her success in silence, she began using her wealth to make a difference. She started by launching scholarships for young girls who couldn't afford school, girls who reminded her of her younger self, full of dreams but limited by poverty. "No girl should be told she's not enough because of where she comes from," she said during her first public speech. Her words went viral overnight. Soon after, Amara created a foundation focused on empowering women in business, offering them mentorship, funding, and opportunities to rise. She visited rural communities, talking to women who sold vegetables by the roadside and encouraging them to dream bigger. She often said, "Success means nothing if it only serves you. Real success lifts others." Her compassion, wisdom, and calm power made her beloved across the nation. Television stations aired documentaries about her journey. From the Ashes, The Rise of Amara Chukwu. Universities invited her to speak, and young people quoted her words on social media. Hashtags like #AmaraInspires and #GraceOverRevenge started trending across Africa. Even those who once judged her watched in admiration. Emeka, her ex-husband, saw her on TV one evening, tears welling up as he realized how deeply he had lost her, not just as a woman but as a destiny. His mother, Madam Ifeoma, began volunteering quietly at one of Amara's programs, perhaps trying to make peace with herself. But Amara never gloated. She remained kind, focused, and humble, the same soft-spoken woman who once whispered, "I may be poor now, but I will never be powerless." Now she stood as living proof of what faith, patience, and self-belief could build. Across Africa, her story became more than gossip or fame. It became a movement. She hadn't just changed her life. She had changed countless others, proving that true redemption is not in revenge but At the Grand African Business Summit in Abuja, the spotlight shone on Amara as she walked gracefully onto the stage. Dressed in a royal purple osso-oak gown, she looked like the very picture of elegance and power. The hall was filled with Africa's most influential people, presidents, CEOs, and journalists, all standing to applaud her as she received the Young African Business Icon of the Year award. Cameras flashed endlessly, but Amara's calm smile said everything. She had finally arrived. When she stepped up to the microphone, the room fell silent. Her voice was soft yet powerful, carrying emotion and strength. "They once called me poor. They kicked me out of their home. But today," she paused, her eyes glistening, "today I stand before you untouchable. Pain made me rise and grace made me unstoppable." The audience erupted in applause, many moved to tears. It wasn't just her success they celebrated. It was her story, her resilience, her quiet fight for dignity. On social media, clips of her speech spread like wildfire, with people calling her the woman who turned pain into power. As Amara looked out into the cheering crowd, she felt peace wash over her. She didn't need revenge or validation anymore. She had built her own empire, lifted others, and proved that no humiliation could destroy a woman who knew her worth. That night, Amara didn't just receive an award. She became a symbol of grace, power, and destiny fulfilled.